Hey everybody, welcome to the What's Up Solar Podcast. Your host, Emmett Muckles, the girl, the I was about to say the girl. I could be. I have daughters, so they dress me up. Anyway, the guy who is traveling about, going to shows, talking to customers, talking to everybody because I need to be in the know. One of those people that I always want to talk to because this guy is fascinating to me. I keep learning stuff about him in not like pro conversation, but I'm like, he does what? I was like, no, stop it. I am talking about none other than Will White from
What's up,
Fluke.
man?
How you doing?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm busy.
Yeah, tell me
Thank
about
the
it.
universe for that I am busy because that's what we need.
Yeah, gotta stay busy. Yeah.
If I'm not busy, then there's issues. Ask my wife about that. She'll be like,
Yeah,
he needs to be busy.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
So you've been in this game a while. You started off as an installer,
it did. Yeah.
and what I like about it is the evolution because your body can't be an installer forever.
Oh no.
The things that people don't think about are knees,
Oh yeah.
ankles,
Back.
back, and hips.
Yep.
So you have maybe a good 10 years
Yeah,
unless you,
it's
unless you're a yoga guru.
yeah. I worked
But
with a couple of those guys, but yeah.
but what transition what put Fluke on your radar? Because I know it put it on my radar because they made like the standard equipment for diagnosing. Because I worked in automotive tier three repair
Oh
on
yeah.
and did Modbus stuff. I did video back when we had tubes and transition over. And you guys made pretty much stuff that I could use in every facet of my career.
Oh
So
yeah.
what brought you to it?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, I started out as a solar installer in 2005. So, working in the field, doing installations and doing electrical work. I mean, that's where it started. So,
Yeah.
I bought my first fluke clamp meter for measuring DC current voltage back probably in 2006,
Yeah.
and that's how I got get acquainted with them, and then things like insulation resistance testers. I got a fluke version of those from back in the day, and yeah, and then like you said, I mean, I worked for an EPC for about a decade, doing mostly residential, small commercial work, and I took kind of what I would assume is a natural progression. Started out as an installer, went to crew lead, did a little sales, moved into kind of project management, and then from there kind of moved up into leadership and was running a region, and then became director of operations for the East Coast. So yeah, it's that kind of progression up, and then transitioning out to SEI, Solar Energy International, where I
Yeah.
did curriculum development and training, and did that for 6 years, 5 years doing curriculum development, and a year as director of business development, so doing some sales there, and then transitioned to Fluke just to get something new, and was the subject matter expert here for our distributed energy resource products. So
Yeah.
it's primarily solar, but covered our EV products as well. And did that up until just a month ago, and now I'm the product manager for the solar products. So now actually managing the products that we have specifically for the solar industry, the new products that we're developing, things like that. Yeah.
But that transitions into other facets too, because just because you're in solar, anywhere the electron goes, Fluke has some way to
Oh,
think about measurement. But not only that, they think about the photon too. So there's different facets.
oh
So
yeah.
whether you're in solar, whether you're a lineman, whether you're dealing
Yep.
with switch gears,
Even down to the networks products now. I mean, we've got
yeah.
tools for data in solar. I mean, there's tons of fiber in solar installations, especially the utility scale ones. And now we're being used in data centers, and yeah, straight across the board.
So with that, let me get your opinion on this. You remember
Yep.
back in the day, you took an inverter, you put it on the wall.
Well, you and me took the inverter and put
Yeah.
it on the wall because they were so
You,
heavy. It took two of us.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was SMA.
Yeah. Yeah.
You ran your conduit, you put it up to junction boxes, you installed your modules.
Yeah.
You put your AC disconnect, maybe a DC disconnect,
Yeah.
and you connect it into your main panel. That was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Today, and you might have had monitoring, but it was localized monitoring with that particular manufacturer.
Yeah.
Today is different where now we have battery that's integrated. We
Oh,
have
yeah.
we have power control systems,
Mhm.
mids that go with that.
Yep.
And then that all has to communicate over either a CAN bus protocol or RS-45 protocol. And then you have the Wi-Fi Bluetooth component that's
Oh,
dealing with
yeah.
the homer. So do you guys have something that delves into like all those aspects where you need to test something?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're at the point with our portfolio of testing tools where there are very few tests, and really I can only think of one that you would do in solar that we don't have a tool for. So yeah, we've got everything, which is can also make it complicated for especially for our sales team because they go into these solar sales calls, looking at a couple things, and then it's like,
Yeah.
well, what about this? Well, what about
Oh.
this? Well, what about this? And we go there's like a list of like eight different product portfolios that we have that are used in solar. So yeah, for pretty much everything, we've got a test, we've got a tool for it.
So let's switch gears here. We went through some things last year with
Yeah,
the one big beautiful bill. The tax credits went away.
yeah,
Um, Commercial incentives are phasing down. They're not out. And I was actually in a board meeting and saying like, hey, there's still some options for you. How do you
yeah.
see the U.S. Solar evolving over the next couple of years? I'd say,
Yeah, it's really going to depend on the sector. Like you said, the residential tax credits phased out at the end of last year, so those are gone. A lot of those people are transitioning to third-party owned systems so they can
mm,
still get the commercial tax credits. Although my understanding is those are going to sunset on July 4th of this year as well. So it's getting, but it's so then let's quantify what that means. So when you look at the utility scale projects, they're safe harboring stuff. So
yeah.
I bought equipment for this project, and when you hit a certain threshold, your tax credit's good for a period into the future. And I haven't stayed super up on what those limits are, but it looks like 2028 to 2030, somewhere in that range. So these utility scale contractors, I mean, it takes so long to develop these projects. They've lined all those up.
That's what I was thinking because you could have a project that you started in 2024
Yeah, or
and it
even 22 or 23.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it may not come to fruition, especially I was just in a training. I'm training with Yoskawa now.
Oh, nice.
And I had some guys who were doing 800-acre farms.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going into switch gears and I can't think of the name of it, where they make all the connections.
Yeah.
That's not a small project. That's not
Yeah.
hey, 2 weeks we're done. That's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
pouring
It's huge.
concrete. That's
Yeah.
huge. So that could
Yeah.
take several years.
For sure.
And if they had that all set up, and if you just pull the rug, that's kind of rough.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, most of those projects, the ones that were financially viable, are safe harbored, and they've secured those tax credits. It's more challenging. I was catching up with some old friends, people I started with this in the solar industry 20 years ago last weekend, and a lot of them are still in residential install. And I was asking them, like, what are you guys doing? What are you seeing happening with your markets? And they're doing the prepaid leases as the new thing. So it's
Oh,
it's it's a lease, but you pay an upfront. You basically pay the whole thing up front, and then at the end of 5 years, you own the system. So it's essentially a way of working the incentives that are available on the commercial scale to be able to get that lease, but it kind of acts like a loan. But again, that's only good till July 4th. So what happens after that? And I don't know. I will say, the things that we have going in our favor, just straight across the industry, is that energy is not getting less expensive. Energy rates, utility
no.
rates are going through the roof.
Yes.
Um, on the large scale, we're adding data centers like crazy. They got to get the energy for those data centers from somewhere. And the bottom line is no matter where you sit, pro or anti-solar or anywhere in the middle, is that the fastest way to get energy onto the utility grid and the cheapest is solar. I mean, that's a
I
fundamental fundamental finance there is, yeah, even without the incentives, it's still the cheapest way to get power on the grid.
Yeah, I had a guy that attended my talk on virtual power plants in
Oh yeah.
Texas, and he was like, Emmett, he was like, yeah, I work with these. He was like, you have no idea how fast they react. And
Oh,
and
instantaneous.
I was just talking about the residential aspect of why everyone should have a battery and PV system. What even if it's just enough to power that battery, to store up that battery,
Yep.
because it can help bolster the grid.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we see this even just straight up solar. I mean, solar, especially when you look at like long residential utility lines, when you get out into the end of that line, as you bring the load up, you start to have voltage issues. So what
Yeah.
we've seen utilities do is let's throw some solar at the end of that line. It stabilizes the voltage. Now they don't have to do costly line upgrades. So yeah, there's lots of different reasons to do solar energy storage, and those reasons aren't going away. If anything, they're becoming more and more important.
Yeah, I haven't heard that term in so many years. And the reason why is because we used to have these issues where when I worked tech support, some would say, "Hey, my voltage is high." They'd be in a subdivision, but they
Oh
would
yeah,
go across the street and it would be low. I mean, no, it would be, yeah, it would be low. And the reason was because it wound through this huge subdivision, and that house the
oh
person was
yeah,
measuring was at the end of it.
sure, yeah,
So, what you're saying is that's proof positive right there that if we
yeah,
had these things that kind of regulate the system,
oh yeah.
we wouldn't have as many problems because our system is at least 80 years old.
It's ancient. Yeah, yeah,
And my wife is not from the United States. She was like, "Why do you have power lines above the ground?"
yeah. Because we were cheap and it was easy. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think it's just going to be a slowdown, or do you think we're going to reinvent and have a structural shift?
You know, I mean, I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. I think we're seeing both. I mean, I think we're getting. I mean, we're definitely in a slowdown in Q1. Like that's it's done for residential, commercial, industrial, utility scale. Those guys are just doing what they always do.
Yeah.
I'm assuming what's going to happen is this is going to be a blip, and come Q2, end of Q2, maybe Q3, I think we'll see residential start to pick back up. I think a nice thing about that, and it's not nice for everybody, but on the residential sector, we had a lot of not awesome solar installers out there.
Yeah.
Um, so I think this is weeding a lot of those companies that were on the bubble of viability to begin with out. Um, which in the long run I think is going to be good for the industry because you're left with the people who are, they're doing good sales, they're reputable, they're doing good installations, they've got their operations dialed in, so they're
Yeah.
efficient there. So I think overall I think this is going to be good for the industry. And like I said, I was talking to a guy end of last year. I was in Chicago for the RE Plus in Chicago,
Yeah.
and I was talking to him. I think he was from Indiana. And he's like, "Oh yeah, our utility rates have gone up 25% in the last year."
I'm in Indiana.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to give you the skinny. When I moved to Indiana, I moved from Michigan, which has high car insurance rates and it had some high utility rates, relatively for the Midwest.
Yeah.
So I remember looking at my bill or finding out what my rate was in 2011, 2012, 2012.
Yeah.
It was 9.78 something cents a kilowatt hour.
That's nothing. Yeah.
My bill was like $100. I remember February is show month, so you're on the road. So I
Yeah,
remember I
absolutely.
unplugged everything and turned the heat down to 50. My bill was $40.
Yep.
Now it is 16.7 and
Yeah.
it's a possibility it could go to 19 or 20 cents.
Yeah. So it's doubled in the last, what, 15 years? Yeah.
But it really
Yeah.
jumped recently.
Oh
Right
yeah.
after this bill, everything went.
Yeah. 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 And there, I mean, we were both at Intersolar 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to a guy from California, and he's like, we have the highest utility rates in the United States, and that's higher even than Hawaii. And
That's
Hawaii's
crazy.
rates are insane. Yeah. So it's, and then that's, and yeah, and it's, I mean, you probably had the same experience when we were calculating return on investment for residential installs. You have, okay, what's your escalator?
Yeah.
What's the utility rate escalator? And people would usually do somewhere between 2 and 4%. I don't know that that's viable anymore. I mean, the utility rates are going up way faster than what we've seen in the last 5, 10, or 15 years. Yeah.
I think one of the things, and I mean, you talked about ownership models like leases and PPAs, but I think
Yeah.
the fintech or financial tech has to evolve with this and come up with a
Yeah.
better model that makes it more affordable for people to own batteries, and not only on the commercial side, but on the residential side and everything in
Yeah.
between, because the prices were crazy. People were paying like 80, 90,000 for a PV system.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I think, we touched on those kind of unscrupulous actors in the residential industry. I mean, that's your solar bros right there. I mean, that's the people who are saying, those independent solar contractors who have that red line. So they say, I work with an installer, they need at least, let's use a number, 250 a watt. So whatever I sell at above that, I get to keep. So they'd sell it at $8 a watt if they could. So, and that's where you end up with these crazy, ridiculous 80, $90,000 systems, because yeah, those sales guys are charging, double, if not more, than what the installers are need to actually do the install.
Do you think it's possible with part of this third party ownership that it could be part of the utilities would go in cahoots to offer something like this? Because it really helps them.
I don't know. I think it would depend on the utility. I don't think I've seen any utilities doing third-party ownership programs. I mean, I've seen utilities partner with solar installers to kind of promote solar installations. I know we have Green Mountain Power up here in Vermont is our largest utility, and they're very progressive as far as programs go, and they've been doing energy storage, those virtual power plants for years now. They've had a partnership with Tesla for a long time. They were one of the Powerwall, beta testers back in the day. So yeah, so you can get your Powerwall from the utility here in Vermont. Yeah,
Yeah, because Mary, I can't think of her name. Well, she was a
Powell,
CEO. Yeah, Mary Powell was a CEO, but she moved to Sunrun,
she did.
which was kind of a good move if that would have been a like Reese's peanut butter cup kind of thing, and roll that out. Um, I'm just wondering what's going to play out in this transition. How will it be, particularly for residential?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
mean, if we could line that out in a chronological order, you and I would be very, very rich men. Um, Yeah, it's hard to tell. I think that you're going to see some shake. We are seeing shakeout of installers from the recent changes with the tax credit. You're going to see technology changes as we always do. The solar part will stay probably pretty steady, but with all the other stuff you mentioned, the energy storage, the load control, the interface devices, like all that stuff, and Sonovo recently went bankrupt, and I was not a huge fan of theirs, but the concept of what they were trying to accomplish, I think, was ahead of their time, which was, we're going to be your utility. That's where they were driving towards. They're like, I'm going to come to your house. I'm going to line you up with solar energy storage, load control, efficient appliances. We're going to disconnect you from the grid, and we're going to operate and maintain your house. That was their end goal. They couldn't get there. I think they were a little ahead of the curve with the technology
I
wise,
think they're
but
way ahead of the curve. I don't want
yeah,
to say way ahead of the curve, but that is the model that I think is of the futures that each
totally.
house should be. We have the technology now to
Yeah.
where the grid is used as the grid for residential is used as a backup. And
Yeah.
why I say for residential is because there are other things that need it. There are commercial, there's
Yep.
strip malls that need electricity that don't have that kind of freedom and space. But it can be supplying that, especially with data centers, because they're going to take up so much energy from
Everything.
some of these communities
Yeah.
that, and that's my plan is to like move to an all electric house,
Yeah.
stove, everything, and just get it from the sun.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, we'll get there technology wise. I think the big thing that's holding that back right now is the utilities and the rate schemes and how they deal with solar. I mean, we've seen net metering getting rolled back in every single market.
Yep.
California, the NEM 2 and NEM 3 are not net metering. They're just not. It's not net metering. And just by definition. So yeah, I think what we need is utilities to understand that this is not going away as much as they push against it, and they need to adjust their focus to figure out how to deal with that and how to still maintain their viability while supporting the grid. I mean, funny story about Mary Powell when she was head of Green Mountain Power, and this is way back in the day here in Vermont, the state was going to update net metering. So they had a series of meetings for stakeholders. So there were all the utilities were involved, some nonprofits that were doing work around solar, and they invited a couple of solar installers. So I was there as the installer. Mary Powell came to exactly one meeting. She walked into the room. This is her as CEO of a utility, the biggest utility in Vermont. She straight up said, "All utilities, solar is here to stay. You need to figure out how to work with it, or you're all going to go out of business."
Wow.
And then she sat down, and that was kind of her thing. So, which I mean, that was kind of a baller move on her part. But yeah, it was you have that, and that's what they've
You
done, and they continue to do.
you have to think about it because they want to lessen electric cars. And I always use this analogy in most of my classes when, especially when I have people who are like my kids' age. I tell them, all right, I'm older than you. And my mother used to tell me that when she was a child in the 50s, early 50s, she said they had like a couple of light bulbs for one for like each room.
Sure.
They had a radio at first, which it probably wasn't that efficient. They didn't have a bunch of electric appliances, and they had the washing machine motor, but they didn't have a dryer. They had to crank this thing. And then they had a TV, which tells me they use almost no kilowatt hours
Sure.
per day compared to now. Everything in my house is literally plugged in. And
Yeah.
it was proven yesterday because I live in Indiana and NIPSCO is replacing the meters. So the gentleman knocked on my door. He's like, "Hey, I got to replace your meter. You're going to be out of power." I was like, "I won't be out of power." I'm like, "I got backups in every room." He was like, "Okay, weirdo." But he did. He pulled a meter. I didn't even know because
Yeah.
I use solar generators that are tied to PV for my office. But this has to happen. We have to get more than just coal and fracked
Yeah.
gas because we have electric vehicles,
Yeah.
which aren't going away. They want them
No,
to, but they're
no,
not going away.
they're definitely not.
All the kids are riding electric bicycles now that look like motorbikes, motocross bikes.
Yep.
My daughter's computer, she could run a small country off of, and it literally heats her room up. It's so powerful.
Wow. All right.
Yeah, so this is the inevitability. It's like you said, they need to get on board because they're going to find themselves drowning, especially with all this data that's coming on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with that, there's a lot of buzz about AI, automation,
All right.
drone-based inspections. I'm a drone pilot myself.
Nice.
From what you're seeing, what's real today versus what's kind of like hype?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I don't, do you go to the SAMNA conference, the Summit Asset Management North America,
I
that
have
Solar
not.
Plaza? Okay, so that's a a small conference for O&M providers and asset owners, utility scale.
Yeah.
It's really small. There's probably, I think this year they're saying there's going to be about 700 people. So it's typically, four, five, 600 people, but it's like all the players, like the big players in utility scale, O&M and asset owners. So a couple of years ago, maybe like 3, 4 years ago, most of the talk was around lack of labor. Like we don't have enough labor to do all the O&M that we need to do, which is not, yeah, we've been struggling with that for years.
Yeah.
Then the next year was like, okay, we still have a lack of labor. How can we use like AI, machine learning, those things to reduce our labor burden? Not to get rid of people, because we don't want to get rid of people,
They
but
still need the
we
people.
we need the people, and we need more people than we have, people available. So, and there was a lot of talk about that, and things like predictive maintenance, say like using AI algorithms to determine when something's going to fail. And there was a lot of talk, but not a lot of, okay, like who's actually doing this? Like where is the actual, like, show me the thing. And then last year, all of a sudden it got real quiet, like around that. Like they still talked about AI machine learning, but it was like way more like
Low key.
subtext. Yeah. And I think my theory is because they're actually using it now. And these companies
Oh,
are like they're actually implementing a lot of these things that we've been talking about. And at a conference with your biggest competitors, they don't want to be like, yeah, this is exactly what we're doing with AI and machine learning. We're getting these. They just don't want to come out with those results. So yeah, I think you're starting to see actual deployment of that AI automation, machine learning for, predictive analytics on the monitoring side. We're seeing
hmm.
like Next Tracker, who rebranded as whatever
Yeah,
their
they're
new
buying
name is.
everybody.
Like totally, yeah. So they bought that ground-based drone company. They've got all kinds of stuff there. And like the whole drone in a box thing, I think is really cool. Where
Oh,
you've got
that's
a
them?
drone that, no, there's a couple different companies doing it. I don't know if Nextracker's doing it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were. But yeah, that concept of you've got a big box that the drone lives in on site, and you just deploy it whenever you want. So it runs out, does its 30-minute flight, goes back to the box, recharges, wirelessly transmits data, and it's there for whatever. So yeah,
Wow. I was
yeah, I think
wondering about
that's
that because I know, because I'm a drone pilot. And for instance, actually, there's two questions coming out of this. For instance, when you're flying over trying to find hotspots,
sure.
and you need to do it when it's sunny,
Yeah,
but you can get this reflection from the sun that'll give you
yeah,
a false positive. Do they have
100%.
things that can really take that in consideration? And two, here's the second part of this. Does Fluke make attachments for drones?
That's so I mentioned the one test that we don't have. That's the one. Yeah. We do everything except for thermal cameras for drones. So yeah, we have the handheld thermal cameras. We have the handheld cameras that are used a lot for electrical equipment and spot checking modules, but not for the drones. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that's, I mean, anybody who's taken any kind of solar thermal class, or thermal in solar, that's like the first thing I talk about when I was teaching is like, yeah, look at this hotspot on this module. Is it a hotspot on the module, or is it a reflection of the sun? And I would assume that you take a company like Raptor Maps or Drone Deploy, or any of those companies that are doing the analysis of the drone images. The as the drone tracks along, if it's a hotspot, the hotspot just stays in one place.
Correct.
As the camera moves, if it moves, then it's just a reflection of the sun. And I'm
Yeah.
assuming that they have a way to algorithm that out of the list of problems within the array.
So I'm training is my thing.
Yeah.
It's my passion. It's my boo. Does Fluke offer live trainings on some of their equipment? Because some of your stuff is complicated. It's not just like pull it out the box, put some leads on it, it's going to tell you what to do. You have to understand the setup, understand the
Yep.
conditions. Are you guys involved in any of that live training with some of your equipment?
We are. So we acquired Solmetric about probably about 2 years ago at this point. So we have a training that we do that came out of the Solmetric tool. So this is IV curve tracing. So it's we have two versions. We have an on-demand online class that's self-paced, and then we have an instructor-led online class that has Paul Hernday does it, and we've also got a contractor that can do it as well. So there's that, and that runs about 6 to 8 hours if you do the whole
Wow.
thing.
Has
Yeah.
has that changed? Because we used to go to kind of grounded systems to ungrounded systems to transformer systems to
Mm.
non-transformer. Has that changed the way Fluke products have evolved?
I mean, probably not the products themselves. Like IV curve tracing is an IV, you're doing a modular string. All the things you mentioned don't really impact that, so that's pretty the same. The tools themselves haven't necessarily changed, but the workflow of how you're working on
Oh,
the system absolutely has changed. Yeah, and the other one, and I've got it right here on the shelf. This is our new GFL 1500 ground fault locator.
yeah,
So that's a brand new to the industry tool for not just telling you that you have a fault, but
but
it
where?
allows you to trace exactly where the fault is in the array.
When you
So
say exactly, not just between module two and module three.
it gives you that information, but also this box right here is it's about the size of a lunchbox. That's a transmitter. Sends a signal out into the array, and then this little leaning tool right here is the receiver and
Oh,
releaser
you can
that
just,
goes with it. And you just walk along and follow it. Trace the signal right to the spot where the fault is. So the back to your training question, that tool is super flexible. So I can use it on basically any architecture of system. I can use it with fuses open. I can use it with fuses closed. There's like so many different workflows with that tool. So I developed an online training for that. You can actually go right on the GFL 1500 product page on
hmm.
fluke.com. It's right in the key features. It's the last bullet. You just click on that link. It goes right to the online training. And that takes about 2 hours to run through if you
Uh,
run through the whole thing.
so you guys
So
made
yeah,
a Fox and Hound product for ground faults.
yeah, Cat 3 1500 volt rated, which there's no other tool that does what this does that has that rating. Yeah, it's really the only tool in the market that does everything that it does. It's unique for sure.
So you're pretty lucky. You have all this cool stuff in your
I do.
background. So like last night I was working on this. Um, I have one of those battery, what is it? It's an inverter. It can jumpstart your car. It has a
Oh
light on
yeah.
it. It has USB ports. My pump wasn't working, so I had to take the thing apart. And I was like, oh man, if I had this 1 meter, I could do. I'm talking to Will tomorrow. Maybe. No. Um, things have been affecting the market. China, India, South Asia, they're
Yeah.
accelerating renewable
Oh,
deployments, but there also is
insane.
where we get a lot of our components from. How do you see the
Absolutely.
international growth balancing out, like the potential slowdowns that we're seeing?
Yeah, it varies by market. So yeah, it's interesting. When I first started doing solar, I was working in the New England Northeast region. So I had like a very regional focus.
Hmm,
Then I went to SEI and started doing more national, so traveling around the U.S. doing training. And now with Fluke, I'm taking a global perspective because I support our global team, and I've gotten to travel all over Southeast Asia. I've been to India, Australia, Europe. So it's a nice perk of the job. Um, China's got double the installed capacity that we have here in the US, and the amount of solar that they install monthly is honestly just mind-boggling when you look at what
Still,
we're doing.
yeah,
Oh, they're still cranking through. Yeah, then their reserve capacity of energy in China is just off the charts. So it's like so in the US when you look at how much so I'm sure you know this your usage and your generation needs to be 1 to 1 in the grid or the whole thing falls apart.
right.
So in the US, our reserve capacity, how much generation they have above what the expected demand is something like, 10 to 20%. China has 100%. They have double the generation at any one time available for what their demand is. And the idea is that they can now grow, we can grow their economy because we got all this reserve capacity. But then, yeah, and then you got countries like India. India's the third largest installed capacity, and they're really quick, close behind the U.S. That they'll outstrip us here in another year or two, as far as installed capacity
They have
goes.
quite a few more people than we have too, so they have
Oh,
the need for it. I mean,
yeah, yeah,
China
yeah,
was at 1 billion people when I was in, I think, college.
yeah,
And so I don't think they've varied from that. They're just like, oh, finally, we can all get lights.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's, I mean, you mentioned earlier that our grid's like 80 years old.
Yeah.
Like the China grid's brand new, like because they've had to build it out, and they've been,
WW2.
yeah, they've been smart about it. So yeah, we're, I mean, I get scared going to Southeast Asia, looking at the influence that China has in that region, and I haven't had the chance to go to China yet. We do have operations in China, both we have manufacturing operations there, and we sell into the Chinese market. So we've got a lot of staff in China. But like I was in the Philippines last year, and I was at a 1.05 gigawatt solar installation that was being installed
On
by,
land,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this was by Power China. Power China was the majority owner in it. Yeah.
how many acres is, how many,
Not, we don't talk in acres, we're talking square miles.
that's what I'm
Like,
saying.
it's insane.
It's
Yeah,
just massive.
yeah, yeah.
America could do that. We could do that
Oh,
if you think about this, if we just put solar on every parking lot.
oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. Carports, I mean, even I fly in and out of Burlington, Vermont all the time, and there's a Home Depot we fly right over. And every time I see that roof, there's absolutely no obstructions on that roof, and I'm like, why does that not have solar on it? Or even any of the, you fly into any metropolitan area and you see all the warehouses because they're usually near the
Yes.
airport, and you're like, why are all these warehouses not covered in solar? Like,
I
and
actually
you do
dis
see them some places,
I
but
discovered one by accident. I just took my drone flying in this one area of town. I live in a small town. I
yep,
didn't know this warehouse had solar. They have a lot of solar. I
yep,
was like,
that happens.
who would have thought? Because it's above your eye line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And most people in this town are starting to get an inkling of like, maybe we should get solar since our rates are going. But they're like,
yeah.
they only think of the modules, which is, the basic consumer. They only think of the modules. They don't think of all the other stuff and benefits that go with it. But I could rant about this all day.
This
But
could be a 4 hour long podcast.
it
Yeah,
could. Here's the cool
yeah.
thing that I just want to come hang out at your house because you have, and I want to bring everything that I have that's broken and my power supply, and I want to just
And
sit at that desk.
yeah, this is my actual physical background. This is not any kind of
That's
like,
what I'm saying. That's what I
fake
know.
screen. Yeah, yeah.
Because I
Let's
told
not
you the
even go into
story
this.
about when Fluke first came out with a portable oscilloscope.
Yeah, I get one of those too.
It, gosh, it was in '90s. I remember because I was working in spectroscopy and we rented one. And I was like,
Yeah.
because because these machines that I built and maintained, they shut off a lot of RF.
Okay.
So I would have to locate the RF, and then I would have to get somebody to drive an 8 foot copper pole in the ground about 4 feet away from the machine. And
Yeah.
then I would have to figure out how to drive all that RF into the ground.
Okay.
And there was also a frequency counter that was similar, or a frequency analyzer I
Yeah.
was in heaven. Then they told me how much it cost, and I was like, yeah, my house don't even cost that.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, I mean,
That
we're
was in
we're
the
a
'90s,
premium.
though.
Yeah, and as now our tools haven't gotten any less expensive, and we're a premium product. The big thing behind our product is safety. We do all the testing, and it was funny. The one of the teams, this is a couple of years ago before I started at Fluke, they had taken a bunch of different multimeters from different companies, all with the same category and voltage rating,
Right.
and then put voltage in until they catastrophically failed, and then they released it to marketing, and then the legal team was like, no, 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 you can't do that. But the and I'm not. I don't know the names of which whose meter was what, but when you look at the rating, like 1,000 volt Cat 3 meter has to withstand a certain level of voltage above 1,000 volts for a certain period of time.
Right.
And and I think it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like 3,000 volts or something. Don't quote me on it, but
I won't.
let's just say it's 3,000 volts. So the fluke meter did like 4,500 volts. It was like way above what the minimum requirement is. Some of the competitors were like right at it, and some of them didn't even hit it. And they've all got that same rating. And yeah, and that's we want to make sure that our users are getting home at the end of the day, and
That
that's why
that's
our stuff's expensive. Yeah,
that's one of the other things about Fluke that I like that I had never seen with any other meter. Maybe because use, I use a variety of meters throughout my
sure.
career.
Yeah, we all have. Yeah.
But one of the items that stood out to me is your calibration and inspection testing. Like
Mhm.
every like once a year, I worked at this place where we were bench technicians, and they would come grab all of our meters and send them
Yep.
in.
Yep.
And they're like, "You can, well, what is? We have another set for you to use in the interim." And they were only used while those were out. Then those came back, and we used
Oh,
those
that's
again.
funny. Yeah.
It was real, and I had a full scope of things. No,
Yeah.
but I've been impressed by Fluke since I was. It's like my Mustang or my
Yeah.
Camaro from.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I can't tell you how many people come up to us at trade shows and be like, "Oh yeah, I got the multimeter my dad gave me that he's been using since 1960 or 1970 something." And oh yeah, it
Oh,
still works. Yep.
dial deflection.
So, yeah, I don't know if they're that old, but I had one guy, we were at a trade show. This is a solar guy. They were doing power quality analyzing in New York on a commercial rooftop. The inverter was up on the roof. He said they did the job. Went back to the shop. Power quality analyzer was gone. Wasn't there. So they looked through all their stuff. They figured it had gotten stolen. So he bought a new one. They went out to that same job a year later. And this is in New York, and it wasn't the city. It was in upstate. They got up onto the roof. There's the power quality analyzer sitting in the case on top of the inverter. It had been sitting out in the snow, sleet, rain, heat for a year. He pulled it out. Batteries are dead, of course. So he charged the batteries up. Thing turned right on. He sent it out for calibration. It was still within calibration.
Wow.
Wasn't even out of calibration. And the thing had been outside in the case, but it had been outside for literally a year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you said New York, right?
And that was, yeah, upstate. Yes. Yeah.
So I know I can tell you how cold it gets there.
It gets
And the number
cold.
one killer of any component is cold and heat on capacitors.
Yep.
So if your circuit has any capacitors, that's a death wish.
Yeah, and it's up on a roof, so summertime in New York's not cold either. It gets hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Yeah, but that's a testament to the quality that we put into those tools. We designed them to last a lifetime. Yeah,
Well, I've been waiting to get you. I've been asking you for a while to come on this
you've been bugging
podcast,
me for a minute. Yeah,
and I'm so grateful that you're here. And
yeah,
as a colleague, I am just so happy that you're joining me. So thank you.
yeah. No problem. Yeah, it's always a joy to run into you at the shows, which I'm sure I'll probably see you in another week or so at the NABCEP conference, and probably RE Plus in the November too. Yeah.
All right. I got one question, and you're going to understand this. How do your ears stay so healthy looking?
Yeah, so that's a reference to my mixed martial arts hobby. Yeah, there's a contingent of us that go to all the shows that do jujitsu. So yeah, a selective partner choice is
Oh, I
the
thought you just wore headgear that protected them.
no, no, no,
No,
no. I
because you
just I
can't get
just
the holes right if you got headgear on.
yeah. I just beat up the little kids. That's what I do these days.
Hey,
It
man, thanks for being on the show.
was good talking to you, Emmett. Thank you much.
Hey, everybody, remember this. There's this big, beautiful ball in the sky. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't see it. And like today, I'm looking outside, my window's right here. I can't see it because it's cloudy. And at night, sometimes you can get a remnant of it because it reflects off this thing that comes across our sky at night. And sometimes there's a shadow. As of this recording, there's going to be a shadow tonight. What I'm talking about is the sun, and the sun gives us life. It gives us life in the spring. It tells us when to go to sleep. It tells us when to wake up. But one thing that the sun won't ever do is send you a bill. Till next time, love you all. Peace.